works at the CAPTA Center for the Prevention and Treatment of Child Abuse and Neglect at the University of Colorado. And Dan has over 35 years of experience in the human services field and was one of the creators of the Principles of Partnership. Over the last 2 decades, Dan has traveled the country delivering training and coaching to all levels of child welfare staff related to implementation of what we're going to talk about is differential response, case management, leadership, and best practices in family engagement.
Thank you. Thanks for coming today, you guys. I'm going to try and make this as thorough and quick as I can do it. How many of you know Chuka? Anybody? That's the first thing you look up tonight. It has to do with a presentation done very quickly, but still thoroughly. So that's my goal today. The CAPTA Center's been around since 1972, and we have world-class researchers. I consider myself more of a practitioner. And practitioners are researchers too, in the sense that we try to find out what works every single day. And so my background is really in as an implementation coach, as a practice coach, as a leadership coach, and working with those kind of groups in the child welfare system to figure out what does work. So that's kind of the emphasis that I'm going to have with you today. This is the child welfare system overview in Colorado. Once a CPS report comes in from the community, the first decision is made whether it's screened in or screened out. Screened in, it meets the statutory requirements for a CPS report. If it's screened in, then because we are a differential response state, there's a decision next made whether it's going to be tracked to the high-risk assessment case, which in Colorado are 4 high-risk cases. It makes sense. And the family assessment response, which are for low or medium, or low to moderate risk cases. Now, if it's not screened in, because it doesn't rise to the level of necessary in order to intervene with a family, currently we have 3 major prevention programs in Colorado. I'll talk some more about the Colorado Community Response Program in a little bit more detail. The Safe Care Program is a national program that's been researched out there in lots of other states also. And the Nurse-Family Partnership, same thing. Lots of really good research on Nurse-Family Partnership, and that's out there. In Colorado, each county has their own decision to make about what services, what types of services are best going to meet the needs of their community. All of these prevention programs, though, engage at-risk families in voluntary services to mitigate the risk of child maltreatment by strengthening the family's protective factors, building social capital, increasing financial stability and self-sufficiency, and improving family functioning and well-being. In Colorado, approximately, of all the CPS reports made, approximately 40% are screened in. You know, it fluctuates over time, but about 40%, and that's probably roughly the national average, roughly. And so 60% of those cases, families reported for child maltreatment are screened out and receive no CPS response at all. And in 2013, that meant 53,000 referrals where nothing happened in Colorado. And so that's, if you think about why are we talking about prevention, that's the reason. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Colorado community response in the continuum from intervention to prevention. Whoa.
Uh-oh, we're at the box.
Thank you. So in an intervention, when you're intervening with a family, traditional CPS is at the far end of that scale. And if you think about it, the traditional CPS intervention with a family is what can be considered an iatrogenic system. That'd be something else that you look at tonight. Meaning that just by us intervening, we create some trauma for the family, just by intervening. And so the idea about moving towards the prevention end of the scale is to eliminate some of that damage that we cause just by being involved in the system. Differential response lessens that in the sense that in a traditional case, there's labels put on people as a perpetrator, there's a victim involved, all those things are identified in the system. In differential response, findings of somebody being responsible or not responsible aren't necessary, those aren't done. And the labels are just eliminated in that way. And so for some families, if it's skillfully done, that can make a huge difference to how they respond to the intervention. But even more so towards the prevention end of the scale, a program like the community response, which is a voluntary program. Families, it's individualized to the family. They make the determination about whether it's something that they want to pursue. And therefore, what happens is they end up making more longer-term change. And therefore, don't come back in the system so quickly. I do want to share a little bit about just my view. And I realized I picked a bad picture for my prevention piece. It's like a jail, and it's really not. So CPS to most families, no matter how skillfully you do it with them, it feels like judgment. It feels like you're judging them. And that's because you are. A CPS response is judging their parenting, judging whether or not they're taking care of their children appropriately. And judgment leads to, for anyone, for anybody in the CPS system, for anyone really, judgment leads to resistance, which leads to little follow-through, and therefore little follow-through on what needs to change in the family. And therefore, if they're not really making any long-term changes, they end up coming back into the system more readily. Prevention approaches there's probably a wall built by people even in the prevention aspect, but there's usually a door in it. That's the idea I'm trying to get across there. Usually a door in the wall. The voluntary nature of it, avoiding those labels that happen in a CPS kind of case, just leads to more easily avoiding the feeling of judgment. It's still a wall, but you're more likely to get through the resistance, mainly because of the family feeling like they're more in control. And the more control the family feels, the less judged they feel, the more information they're willing to share, the more they're willing to engage with a caseworker, the more information you're likely to get. And the more information you get, the more you know about somebody, the more you can help. You're going to really pinpoint down what needs to happen in the family. So specifically around the Colorado Community Response, it's about, again, a voluntary program, targets prevention services to families that have been deflected from the child welfare system without the provision of formalized services. Those are the eligible families that can have a screened out child welfare referral on the front end, or they can be referred after a high-risk assessment or a family assessment case is closed and no services are offered. But again, it's a voluntary program at that point. The other thing that can happen in Colorado with the CCR is families who were offered CCR services before, but for whatever reason didn't follow through, can come back and say, you know, now that sounds really good. Now I really would like to pursue those kind of services. And again, you have that the voluntary nature of it, and therefore you get more follow through, and therefore you get more longer lasting change. The goals for Colorado Community Response: to provide comprehensive voluntary services. It's a 12 to 16 week comprehensive case management model. The idea specifically is to reduce referrals, intakes, and substantiations to CPS by making the changes that are really necessary in the family. To address the link between poverty and maltreatment by connecting them to economic and other support services. And to promote safe, stable, and nurturing relationships that allow kids to grow to their best. Right now in Colorado, there's 1,900 families involved in the Colorado Community Response Program from 28 different counties, and that's out of 64 counties in Colorado. And we just recently, CAPTA and some of our other partners recently completed some research on the Colorado Community Response, and these are the findings. That child welfare involvement outcome trends were positive and statistically significant. Caregiver demographics indicate that CCR is serving those real vulnerable families that we need to be serving in a prevention program. Significant improvement in protective factors pre and post-test, from pre to post-test. High levels of caregiver engagement and positive feelings. And again, if they're engaged, they're more likely to communicate what their needs are. And you're more likely to pinpoint services that meet those needs. High level of service provision, caregiver satisfaction, significant improvement in Colorado Family Support Assessment domains. Those domains are things like employment, adult education, housing, income, transportation, cash savings, food security, all kinds of things like that. And I just wanted to kind of share what families say about the program. Once you understand that the end goal is to help the child, then you feel like, okay, she's on my team. She's not out there to get me. It's another resource. It takes a village to raise a child, and this person, this caseworker, is there to give you more resources and help with whatever they can. And so that kind of response from families really impacts how caseworkers feel working with them in this type of prevention program. Families are trying so hard, so grateful, and they are so grateful to have an advocate that listens to their needs. I enjoy building relationships with my clients and seeing them flourish, and this is the outcome we're hoping for. Take advantage of the tools and programs and services the community has to offer. It doesn't matter much if you have the services and they're not being taken advantage of. So thank you for your time today, and appreciate it.